My name is Joanna Whitaker. I'm 34 years old, a registered nurse supervisor in Colorado Springs. I've worked double shifts for 10 years straight, pulled strangers out of seizures, stitched gunshot wounds through tears, and once revived a man who spat in my face 10 minutes earlier. But nothing ever prepared me for what my own family did to me. It happened on a Thursday morning. I drove past our family home, the one I paid off down to the cent to keep from foreclosure. I was dropping off a signed insurance form, thinking I'd find my parents in the kitchen like always. Maybe my mom fussing with the kettle, dad reading the sports page aloud like someone was listening. Instead, the curtains were gone. The driveway was bare. Even the potted ficus that sat by the front steps was missing. That plant hadn't moved in 12 years. I stepped out of my car and slowly walked to the porch. There, taped to the door, was a plain white envelope. On the front, my name in my mother's sharp, jagged handwriting. Inside was a single line. "Thanks for fixing it. We didn't want to live with a loser." That's when I laughed. Not out of shock, not even anger. It was the laugh of a woman who had seen this coming and prepared for it. Because what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that the deed to the house wasn't in their names anymore. It was in mine. It was 6 days earlier, when I stood in that very same living room holding the cashier's check in one hand and the loan agreement in the other. My parents were sitting on the couch, shoulders curled in shame, eyes glassy with regret. My father didn't say much, he rarely did, but when I handed him the receipt from the bank, he stood up and hugged me. Not a pat on the shoulder. Not a brief, reluctant arm around me. He hugged me tight. My mother began to sob. She buried her face in my neck and said, "You saved us." I remember thinking for the first time in a long time, maybe I mattered to them. Maybe this was our fresh start. That night we had dinner together. They made my favorite baked salmon with rosemary potatoes. My mother even brought out the wine she'd been saving since my graduation. They toasted to me. "To Joanna, our rock," she said. They took a picture together, posted it to Facebook. "Our daughter paid off $190,000 to save our family home. Miracles do exist." And me, I hugged them back. Not because I trusted them, but because I hoped I still could. Before leaving that night, I slid a slim folder into my mom's hands. "Just a few things the bank needs signed," I said. Routine stuff. They didn't even look. The next afternoon, I got a call from Marina, my closest friend, and a real estate attorney. "You're officially the sole owner now," she said. They signed the warranty deed and the refinancing package. It's recorded with the county. 3 days later, my parents listed the house, not knowing it was no longer theirs to sell. They found a private buyer, someone looking for a quiet retirement property. The buyer wired the down payment into escrow immediately. But during title verification, the deal hit a wall. The title company flagged a discrepancy. The names on the listing my parents didn't match the legal ownership on record. The buyer's agent reached out, then the county recorder's office, then the bank. And then the whole thing unraveled. The funds were frozen, the deal collapsed. The buyer filed a complaint, and my parents disappeared. I didn't call them. I didn't beg for an explanation. I didn't need one. Instead, I called Marina again. And when she picked up, I said 6 words that tasted better than any Wine Let's Report attempted fraudulent transfer of title. She responded with a quiet breath of approval. Then she said, "They just messed with the wrong daughter." Colorado Springs has always been a strange place for me, beautiful in a way that feels indifferent. The kind of city where you can disappear, even if you've lived there your whole life. For me, it wasn't the mountains or the dry winds that shaped my memories. It was the front door that was never truly open. I remember the winter I lost my job at the trauma center downtown. It wasn't performance-related. The hospital was merging cutting staff in waves. I had 3 weeks to pack up a decade of work and nowhere to land. Rent in my neighborhood was brutal, and I had just drained my savings to cover Brandon's medical bills from his latest bike accident. I called my mother. Her voice was warm at first. She asked if I was okay, if I was eating, if I still had my navy blue scrubs she liked. And then I said it. "Mom, can I come stay for a little while just until I find my footing again?" There was a pause. I heard her shift the phone, maybe glance across the room. I pictured her looking at my dad, probably silent, probably chewing on a toothpick like always, and then the words came. "Sweetheart, Brandon needs space. He's working on his startup idea. He's been under so much stress." I stared at the ceiling of my car parked in the hospital lot, keys still in the ignition. She kept talking something about how they loved me, how they believed in me. But all I heard was what wasn't being offered: a couch, a room, a place to be safely broke. I spent the next 4 nights in my car. The only thing that made it bearable was knowing it was temporary, that I wouldn't let this become my narrative, that I'd get back up on my own terms. I never brought it up again. Never asked why Brandon got the guest room, the last of the savings, the attention. I just kept moving forward until the call came 3 years later that would drag me straight back. My mother called during my lunch break. I was seated on a bench outside the ER holding a tuna sandwich I'd barely taken a bite of. She didn't waste time with greetings. "Joe, we need help. The house is going into foreclosure." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her right. How it was paid off, wasn't it? Grandpa left it to you mortgage-free." Another pause. Then she sniffled. "We took out a loan to help Brandon get his vape business off the ground. He was so passionate, Joe, and we believed in him." I didn't say anything for a long moment. Not because I didn't have words, but because I had too many. They had borrowed against the house. Again. "What's the balance?" $190,000. The second mortgage defaulted last quarter. "We're behind by months. We've tried everything." My sandwich dropped to the bench beside me. I looked up at the hospital's brick facade, trying to process. The house had been in our family for 2 generations. My grandparents had built it after the war, every nail, every beam part of their American dream. They left it to my parents, debt-free, a clean slate, a promise. And my parents turned that promise into collateral, all for Brandon. Brandon, who had crashed 3 cars in 5 years, dropped out of college twice, and never kept a job longer than a season. Brandon, who always had an idea, a pitch deck, a partner, a plan. And every time it failed, someone else paid the price. This time, it was the house. I drove home that night in silence, the steering wheel tight in my hands. I thought about the birthdays, the Thanksgivings, the quiet moments on that back porch with hot coffee and my dog curled at my feet. I thought about how many times I'd forgiven them, how many times I'd let it slide. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. They hadn't just gambled a house. They had gambled me, my memories, my childhood, my roots. Still, I didn't say no. Because a part of me, no matter how bruised, still wanted to be chosen, to matter, to fix it all like I always had. But this time I wouldn't do it blindly. This time I'd protect myself first. It was almost midnight when the phone rang. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, still wearing my scrubs, a pile of laundry untouched in the corner. My laptop screen glowed softly across the room, illuminating the unfinished application for a master's program I had been meaning to submit. I had spent the past 2 weeks drafting the personal statement, rewriting it 3 times. I wrote about resilience, about healing, about how I wanted to build something for myself, finally. And then, just like that, it all froze in the quiet of the ringing phone. I didn't recognize the number. But I knew. I picked up and didn't say anything at first. "Joe." My mother's voice cracked like a splintering branch. "Joe, it's bad. They're going to take the house." My chest tightened. "They sent the notice today," she continued. "We've got 30 days, maybe less." I closed my eyes. "How much?" Her voice dropped. "It's all of it. The full $190,000. They're calling the loan." I didn't speak. I didn't need to ask why or how again. I already knew. It had been Brandon. It had always been Brandon. "Your father doesn't know what to do anymore," she said. "He's been so quiet these past few weeks. He won't even look at me." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but instead I sat in silence, listening to the kind of desperation that only shows up when people finally realize the consequences of the things they thought they could outrun. "I wish we could fix this ourselves," she added. "I know we've made mistakes, but if we lose the house, we lose everything." That sentence echoed in my chest. We lose everything. I stood up slowly and walked over to the desk. The cursor blinked on the final sentence of my personal statement. I believe the next chapter of my life will be built, not from what I inherited, but from what I choose. I stared at that line for a full minute. Then I hit backspace, held it down until the screen was blank, and I closed the laptop. I tore the printed draft in half, then in half again. It fell like ash into the trash bin. Because in that moment, I wasn't writing about the future anymore. I was being pulled back into a house that hadn't felt like home in years, back into a family that only called when the sky was falling. I didn't agree to anything that night. I just listened. To my mother's breath on the other end of the line, to the silence in the room after she hung up, to the steady thrum of the ceiling fan above me as if it too was spinning in helpless circles. But deep down, I already knew. I would save the house. Not for them. For me. For what it represented. For the child in me who used to sit on that front porch with scraped knees and dreams bigger than anyone had time to hear. But this time I wouldn't walk in blind. This time I would walk in with my eyes wide open and my name on the deed. The next morning I called Marina. She picked up on the second ring, her voice still thick with sleep. "Joe?" I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Our lives had been moving in opposite directions lately. She newly a mother, me drowning in double shifts and a restlessness I couldn't name. But when I told her what happened, she was fully awake in seconds. "Wait," she said, her voice tightening. "They defaulted on the second mortgage." "Yes, it's in collections. Full balance due. No grace period left." She paused. I could hear her baby cooing softly in the background. Then, with the kind of calm only a seasoned attorney could muster, she asked, "How much are we talking?" $190,000. Jesus, Joe. I leaned back in my chair staring out the window at a neighbor walking their dog, so far removed from my spiral that I felt like I was watching a different planet. "I'm thinking of paying it off," I said. Silence. "Joanna?" She finally said, her tone sharp and surgical. "No, not like this. If you write a check and just hand it over, you're not helping them, you're subsidizing their recklessness." Again. I didn't respond. She continued. "Listen to me. If you give them that money without tying your name to the asset, it's a gift. That's how the law sees it. Not a loan, not a favor. A gift. Once it's transferred, it's gone. Legally, you'd be nothing more than a generous bystander." I swallowed hard. "But it's my family." She didn't soften. "And how many times has that sentence already cost you?" I rubbed the side of my temple, remembering the time I gave Brandon 10 grand for a prototype. He said he needed it to pitch investors. I never saw a prototype. Or the money. Marina lowered her voice. "Joe, this time, if you're going to save them, you save yourself first. We do this right. We refinance the property, pay off the debt, and have the title legally transferred into your name as part of the transaction. They'll never go for it. They won't know what they're signing," she said flatly. "We'll roll it into the loan paperwork. It's standard procedure anyway. You're not stealing anything. You're protecting your investment." I stared at the framed photo of me and my parents on my desk, taken years ago back when smiles didn't hide so many fractures. My father had his arm around me. My mother had written, "Our Joe, our pride," on the back. Had I really been their pride or just their fallback plan? I exhaled. "Okay, let's do it. Tell me what I need." Marina didn't hesitate. "We'll need a quitclaim deed or a warranty deed, preferably the latter. It has to be notarized. You'll also need to be the primary on the refinance application. They can co-sign if needed, but your name must be the one on the title when the deal closes. And what if they ask questions? Then you tell them what they want to hear. That you're streamlining the process, that the bank requires a new structure to approve the loan, that it's all paperwork jargon. Whatever you need to say. That's a lie. It's a defense, she said. You're not doing anything illegal. You're not tricking them out of the house. You're saving it. And you're claiming what should have been yours years ago. A strange calm settled over me. Not peace exactly, but something firmer than fear. Like the quiet before surgery, the kind where you know it's going to hurt, but you also know it's necessary. I'll schedule the meeting, I said. You'll be there, right? I'll be there, she confirmed. And Joe. This time don't hug them afterward. That part stung more than I expected. After we hung up, I looked back at my torn-up application in the trash. The future I thought I was building was gone. But maybe this act of drawing boundaries, of protecting something tangible, maybe this was the foundation I'd needed all along. Because family isn't just who raised you. Sometimes it's who teaches you exactly where to stop giving. 3 days later, I sat across from my parents at their kitchen table. The house smelled like lemon-scented floor cleaner and something simmering on the stove. Familiar, too familiar. I kept my bag zipped tight beside my chair, my fingers resting on a neat folder filled with documents. Marina had prepped everything. All I had to do was deliver it calmly, confidently, without tipping my hand. They looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from work, but the kind that settles in when consequences finally catch up. I began simply. I spoke to a loan officer, I said. There's a way to stop the foreclosure immediately. But it has to happen fast. My dad shifted in his seat. We already tried that. Not like this, I said. This is a cash-out refinance. My mom blinked. What's that? It's when we take out a new loan to pay off the old one completely. But the new loan is in my name. I have excellent credit. I'll qualify, and I can cover the debt. My father's jaw tightened. So, the house wouldn't be in our name anymore? It would be under my ownership, I said carefully. Legally. But nothing changes day to day. You still live here. You still treat it as yours. We just need to make the numbers work on paper. That's what the bank needs. He looked at me for a long time. I held his gaze steady. My mother reached for his hand. Eugene, we don't have a choice. Still, he hesitated. I'm not throwing you out, I added. This isn't about control. It's about saving the house. He finally spoke. One sentence. Do we still get to keep it? I nodded once. If you sign. He took the pen. Didn't even flip through the pages. Just signed where the stickers told him to sign line after line, initials here. Full signature there. Marina had placed every tab precisely. By the time my mom joined him and signed as witness, the process had taken less than 10 minutes. They never asked to read the documents. Not once. I slid the folder back into my bag and stood up. My mother looked at me with glassy eyes. You're a good girl, Joe. I didn't respond, because good girls don't get handed family homes like consolation prizes. They fight for them, strategically, legally, and they win, quietly. Before I left, my dad followed me out to the porch. He rubbed the back of his neck like he always did when unsure. You're not going to hold this over us, right? No, I said. I'm holding it together. There's a difference. He didn't say another word. I got into my car and drove away, my hands shaking on the wheel. But not from guilt, from relief. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just the emergency contact. I was the owner. The next morning, Marina met me at the notary's office downtown. She wore a dark blazer, no makeup, and carried that expression she always had when stepping into a courtroom. Sharp, focused, unapologetic. We had everything ready, the cash-out refinance packet, the promissory note from the bank, and most importantly, the warranty deed, the document that would legally and irrevocably transfer full ownership of the house from my parents to me. The warranty deed wasn't just a sheet of paper. It was the foundation of everything I was doing. Unlike a quitclaim deed, which merely transfers interest without guarantees, a warranty deed affirms the property is free from liens and that the grantor, the seller, has full legal right to transfer it. Once signed and notarized, it would be the single most powerful piece of proof I'd have. My parents arrived 5 minutes late. My mother looked nervous, clutching her handbag with both hands. My father kept his eyes low, lips pressed into a tight line. We walked into the notary's office together. The room smelled like toner and cold coffee. A small camcorder sat on a tripod in the corner, angled toward the table. That camera would capture every word, every motion, every signature. The notary, a woman named Sandra, welcomed us with a practiced smile. She explained the process slowly, clearly, like she had said it 1,000 times before. "These documents will be signed under oath," she said. "Your signatures confirm that you understand what you're transferring and that you're doing so voluntarily." Neither of my parents asked any questions. The video camera blinked red, recording. I watched as my father picked up the pen, adjusted his glasses, and signed his name on the line marked Grantor, then initialed each page one after another. My mother followed quieter than I'd ever seen her. Sandra slid the papers back toward herself, stamped them, signed, and affixed her official seal. Then she turned toward the camera and said, "Signatures confirmed and notarized on April 14th at 10:42 a.m. Click. The camera light went off. It was done. From that moment, I was the legal owner of the house, but there was one more step to make it airtight. After we left the notary's office, Marina and I drove straight to the El Paso County Recorder's office. It sat inside a squat brick building near the courthouse, tucked between the DMV and a bail bond shop. Bureaucracy never looked glamorous, but that building held the keys to legal reality. We took a number and waited. When it was our turn, Marina handed over the original warranty deed and supporting refinance documents to the clerk behind the glass window. She stamped them, took copies, and logged them into the county database. Within 20 minutes, my name was officially entered into public record as the sole property owner. No room for confusion, no loopholes, no back doors. I kept the certified copies in a locked folder in my glove compartment. As for the originals, I hid them. I didn't store them in the house or leave them in a drawer. I placed them in a secure fireproof box at my bank's safety deposit vault, the only access me and Marina. To my parents, I gave copies from the bank package standard refinance paperwork, clean and bland, without the title transfer details. I stapled them neatly, slid them into a bright blue folder, and dropped it off at their house. When my mother opened it, she smiled faintly. "So official," she said. I nodded. "You can always call the bank if you have questions," I added. "They'll walk you through anything." She never did. Neither did my father. I realized then that they didn't really care about the papers. They cared about what the money meant: salvation, escape, another clean slate they hadn't earned. But for me, those papers were more than ink and signatures. They were insurance against betrayal. They were the silent guardians of my peace. And they were proof, finally, that I had learned to protect myself. Not through rage, but through process, through law, through foresight. Because sometimes the smartest revenge isn't retribution, it's documentation. The next morning I drove by the house. I wasn't planning to go in. I just wanted to drop off the escrow confirmation letter from the bank and maybe sit for a moment on the porch, take it in. The weight of what I'd done, the risk I'd taken, hadn't quite hit me yet. Maybe it still hadn't felt real. But as I turned the corner and pulled up to the curb, something was off. The curtains were gone. The front door was open, not wide, but just enough to let in a draft. The driveway was empty. Even the rusted grill Dad never used had vanished from the side yard. I stepped out of the car slowly, half expecting someone to walk out with groceries or laundry or a sheepish explanation. But no one did. I walked to the porch, no shoes on the welcome mat, no wind chimes clinking in the breeze like they usually did. Instead, there was a white envelope taped to the glass. My name wasn't even on it this time. Just 2 words scribbled across the front in black marker, barely legible: "Thanks, loser." I didn't rip it open. I peeled the tape, carefully sat down on the top step, and read the note in silence. No apology, no signature, no explanation. Just those words drenched in cruelty, as if they were proud of what they'd done. I sat there for a while. The sun hadn't risen fully yet, but I could feel the morning heat beginning to stretch across the street. The neighborhood was quiet. A sprinkler clicked softly from a lawn across the road. Everything looked normal, but everything had changed. I didn't cry, didn't yell. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, searched through my contacts, found the number for the El Paso County Assessor's Office. When the clerk picked up, I kept my voice calm. "This is Joanna Whitaker. I'm calling to check the current activity on a property I legally own. I need to know if any transfer listing or sale has been initiated in the past 72 hours. She asked for the address. I gave it to her. There was a pause, the clicking of a keyboard, and then her voice again, this time slower. There's an inquiry showing up from a private listing service, but no formal sale, no title transfer recorded, nothing's been finalized." I exhaled. "Can you flag the property for dispute just in case? Yes, ma'am. I'll initiate the hold and notify our legal review team." I thanked her, hung up, and stared out at the empty street. They were gone. They had taken what they could: furniture, clothes, probably even the savings from the escrow account if they'd moved fast enough. But they hadn't taken the house. They couldn't, because the law didn't recognize betrayal, it only recognized paperwork. And my paperwork was flawless. I leaned back on the step, letting the sunlight hit my face. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for what would come next. I was ready. I didn't have to wait long for confirmation. That afternoon, Marina called. Her voice was sharp, controlled, but definitely sharper than usual. They tried to sell the house, she said. No greeting, no lead-in, just the facts. To who, I asked, already standing, already reaching for my laptop. A couple from out of state, retired teachers. They went through a local independent broker, no big firm, just some mom-and-pop operation. Cash buyer. The whole thing was set to close fast. I sank back into the couch. But they listed it yesterday morning. The buyer submitted an offer by mid-afternoon. It got accepted within the hour. The broker drew up a purchase agreement and initiated title verification this morning. I closed my eyes, and Marina continued. The title company pulled the public record like they always do. Your name came up, not theirs. The sale stalled immediately. The buyers were confused. The agent was furious. And now the funds, $190,000, are sitting frozen in an escrow account pending resolution. I could hear typing in the background as she spoke. Marina never stopped working when the pressure rose. She got quieter, more precise. They were hoping to skip title insurance, she added. That's how fast and dirty this was. No real due diligence. Because they thought they still owned the house, I said. They might have even believed it. But intention doesn't mean anything in real estate, Joe. It's all about the paperwork, and yours is airtight. I sat with that for a second. They left this morning, I said quietly. Packed up everything and left a note. Called me a loser. Marina snorted. Yeah, losers don't carry warranty deeds. There was a pause between us, the silence of relief starting to take shape. So what happens now, I asked. I'm filing a dispute of ownership with the county. The escrow officer has already flagged the account for legal review. No funds will be released until the matter is cleared. And what about the buyers? They're not pursuing anything for now. They'll likely walk away. The deal is legally invalid. But if they file a formal complaint, it'll be against your parents, not you. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I'm also sending a courtesy notice to the listing agent, she added, with a copy of the warranty deed, notarized footage, and confirmation of filing with the recorder's office. That should shut it down completely. I leaned back, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. They really thought they could pull it off. They've pulled it off their entire lives, Joe. Until now. I looked over at the blue folder on my coffee table, the one I'd given them with the refinance documents. I remembered how relieved they'd looked, how grateful. or at least how well they faked it. They knew exactly how much I cared about that house, I murmured. They counted on it, Marina said. They just didn't count on you learning the system better than they did. And for once, I had. Not through threats, not through force, through structure, through law, through every clause and every signature they didn't bother to read. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling, the weight of every betrayal finally shifting into something sturdier, something that looked a lot like control. And I promised myself I wasn't going to lose that again. 2 days after they vanished, I was sweeping leaves off the porch when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. I turned and saw Mr. Howard, our longtime neighbor, mid-70s war veteran, and the unofficial guardian of the entire block. He wore his usual fishing hat and denim jacket, and in his hand was a paper bag with what looked like peaches from his backyard tree. "Morning," he said softly, his eyes studying me. "Morning," I replied, trying to act normal as if I hadn't just spent the last 48 hours unraveling my own family's scam. He stepped closer and held out the bag. "For you. Fresh from the tree." "Thanks, Mr. Howard. They smell amazing." He gave a nod, but he wasn't here for fruit. "I saw them leave," he said. "Tuesday morning just before 7. Black SUV. 3 suitcases, maybe 4. They didn't even close the front door all the way." I felt a pinch in my chest, but I stayed silent. I asked if they were heading out for a trip. "Your mom looked right past me. Your dad didn't even wave." His voice was calm, but something about the way he said it, they didn't even say goodbye, hit harder than it should have. He paused, looked me over, then said, "You okay?" I gave him a small smile. "Better than I've been in a long time." He nodded again, slower this time. "Well," he said, eyes narrowing, "people are talking." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of talking?" He rubbed his jaw. "You know how folks around here are. They saw the moving truck last week, then the empty driveway, then you showing up the next day like nothing happened." He tilted his head and added, "And now they're putting things together." I exhaled. "Let me guess they're shocked the quiet daughter pulled something off." He chuckled. "Something like that?" Then he leaned in slightly, voice lowered. "But I'll tell you what I told Marcia next door." I said, "Don't let that sweet face fool you. That girl's been watching and learning for years. She probably knows more about survival than the rest of us combined." That surprised me. He shrugged. "Your folks always thought you were too soft, too quiet. But quiet doesn't mean blind, and soft doesn't mean weak." I felt something tighten in my throat. Mr. Howard adjusted his hat and turned to leave. But just before stepping off the porch, he looked over his shoulder. "They took your silence for submission, Joe. But looks like they forgot something important." "What's that?" He smiled, half amused, half proud. That silence can also be strategy. And then he walked away. I stood there holding the bag of peaches, unsure whether to cry or laugh or both. For years, I'd been underestimated in this house by my family, by neighbors, maybe even by myself. But now the whispers around the block weren't about my failures. They were about how I'd stood my ground. The story was spreading. Some said I kicked my parents out. Others said they abandoned me, and I fought to take back what was mine. Most didn't know the legal parts, only that the girl who used to hide behind her textbooks had just outmaneuvered 2 adults who always thought they were smarter. And for once I didn't mind the gossip. Because this time, it wasn't rooted in shame. It was rooted in truth. My phone rang just after 9 that night. I was sitting on the floor of the guest room folding laundry while a movie played in the background, something light forgettable. The kind of film you play when you're not ready to be alone with your thoughts but too tired to keep pretending you're busy. The screen lit up with unknown number. I didn't answer at first. I watched it ring, let it go to voicemail, then it rang again and again. On the 3rd try, I picked up. I didn't say anything. A moment of silence hung between us. And then I heard him. Joe, it's me, Brandon. His voice was raw, like he hadn't spoken in hours, or maybe like he'd been screaming. She left, he said. Claire left. Took the kids, the car, everything. She's gone. I didn't respond. He exhaled shakily, and when he spoke again, his words tumbled out in a rush. She found the letter Mom and Dad left you, the one with "Thanks, loser" written on it. It was in Dad's suitcase, and the folder with the fake listing agreement. She read everything. Still, I said nothing. She asked me what I knew. He said, his voice cracking. I told her it wasn't my idea, that I just went along with it. But she didn't care. She said I was just like him. Another pause, just like Dad. He sounded like he was breaking apart on the other end. His breath hitched, then came the sound of something falling, maybe a chair, maybe the phone slipping in his hand. Joe, he said quieter now. I don't know what to do. I could hear the panic behind the words, but also something else. Something I hadn't heard in Brandon's voice in years, if ever. Defeat, the kind that comes when there's no one left to lie to. I imagined him sitting in some rundown motel, surrounded by luggage and silence. No wife, no kids, no business, just the echo of choices he didn't want to own. I didn't offer sympathy. I didn't ask where he was. I just listened. He tried again. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought we could fix it, maybe spin it around. I let out a quiet breath. Brandon? I said, my voice steady. You didn't lose Claire because she found the paperwork. You lost her because she finally saw you for who you are. He said nothing. You let them use me, I continued. You watched them drain me and didn't lift a finger. You smiled at dinners I paid for, slept in beds I saved from foreclosure. You were there when they toasted me. And then you were there when they walked out. I waited. Nothing but breathing on the line. I lowered my voice. And now, you're there alone. His voice was barely audible when he finally replied, Do you hate me? I paused. No, I said. But I don't pity you either. Another silence, this one deeper, final. I just needed to hear your voice, he whispered. You did, I said. Now go figure out who you want to be next. Because who you've been, that guy's out of options. Then I hung up. My hands were steady as I placed the phone face down on the table. The movie was still playing, but I couldn't tell you what scene it was. The room felt still in a way I hadn't experienced in years. No guilt, no rage, just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like healing. The envelope came 3 days later. It was thick, legal-sized formal with my name printed in all caps across the front. No return address, but I didn't need one. I knew exactly who it was from. Inside was a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of acting on behalf of my parents. The wording was precise, polished, and just venomous enough to draw blood without staining the page. Our clients request the immediate reversal of the recent property transfer on grounds of fraudulent inducement. Ms. Whitaker, acting under the pretense of support and financial rescue, manipulated her elderly parents into unknowingly relinquishing ownership of their family home. This constitutes a breach of familial trust and may be subject to civil action under state law. I read it twice, then a third time. Somewhere between the legal jargon and the carefully constructed victim narrative, I realized what they were actually doing. They were accusing me of deception, of tricking them, of using their desperation as leverage to steal the house out from under them. And the irony, they were using my own compassion as Exhibit A. I sat there for a full minute before reaching for my laptop. I opened a blank email, typed in Marina's address, attached the notarized warranty deed, attached the time-stamped video file from the notary's office, where my parents had each signed with full awareness on camera under oath, attached the official county recording receipt, showing the deed had been filed, verified, and publicly entered into record. Then below all of that, I added one final attachment, a scanned page from the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act UFTA, the same statute Marina had flagged for me weeks ago. I highlighted the section in yellow. Any attempted transfer of property by a party who no longer holds legal title constitutes avoidable transaction and may be reversed or prosecuted as civil fraud. My parents hadn't just tried to sell a house they no longer owned. They had committed attempted fraud, and now through their lawyer, they were painting me as the con artist. I typed only 2 sentences in the body of the email. Please find enclosed full documentation refuting the claim. Any further communication must be directed to my counsel. Then I clicked send. I didn't shake, didn't cry, didn't even get angry, because this wasn't personal anymore. This was procedural. They had made it so. I closed the laptop and sat back, the hum of quiet settling over the room like a final gavel drop. Let them hire lawyers. Let them draft letters. Let them try to twist the story one more time. But facts don't flinch. And neither did I. The envelope this time was smaller, softer. A pale pink envelope smudged on the edges, as if someone had gripped it too tightly. There was no stamp, just slipped into the mailbox by hand. And the handwriting on the front, I knew it immediately. My mother had always written my name the same way since grade school. Curved J, a long tail on the W. That strange little heart she sometimes drew when she was in a good mood. Or wanted something. I opened it slowly, already bracing for whatever emotional ambush she'd prepared. Inside was a single piece of stationery, yellowing, slightly lined with soft blue ink. Her writing filled the page. Joe, I don't even know where to begin. Your father is furious. Brandon won't speak to anyone. We never expected you to go this far. I suppose I thought that you understood us better than that. That maybe after all these years you'd come around to the idea that family matters more than legal lines or documents. That maybe you'd finally want to belong again. We never meant to hurt you. Not really. We were desperate. We thought you were doing this because you forgave us, because you loved us. And maybe we were wrong to sell the house, but we thought it would give us a new start, a fresh beginning. Now everything's a mess, and you're the one holding the keys like some kind of warden. I hope you can find it in your heart to undo this. Come back to us. Love, Mom. I read it once, then again, slower. She didn't mention the note they left behind. She didn't apologize for lying to my face. She didn't even pretend to regret selling the house out from under me. All she cared about really was that I didn't let them get away with it, that I didn't just roll over and take it like I had for years. And this letter, in all its soft pensiveness and poetic guilt, was a final gambit, one last Hail Mary wrapped in emotional nostalgia. I stood quietly and walked to the fireplace. The logs had burned low, but the embers still pulsed red underneath. I held the letter just above the heat for a moment, watched the edges curl, watched the ink melt into flame. It caught quickly. The paper hissed softly before collapsing inward, a quiet cremation of yet another lie. I sat back down on the floor, the fire warming my skin, and I said it aloud, just once. If family asks you to betray the law in order to belong, it was never family to begin with. For a moment, it was like I could feel the truth of it settling into the room, into my chest. Not cold, just still, like something old finally laying down to rest. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even write back. Because some messages don't need a reply. They need a boundary. And this flame, this silence, this choice not to respond was the reply. The silence of the house no longer haunted me. It was just quiet, peaceful even. I started with the walls. There had always been a crack near the baseboard in the dining room. I patched it up with spackle and a steady hand smoothing over years of noise, dinners slammed doors, apologies whispered too late. I boxed up what was left of their things, a few forgotten scarves, receipts from gas stations, my father's cologne bottle still half full, and the photos they were the hardest. Not because I miss them, but because of what they reminded me that I once believed love meant bending until I broke. I kept one thing, a small porcelain bowl my mother used every morning for her yogurt and berries, not as a keepsake, but as a warning. As a reminder of how far I'd go for someone who would never go as far for me. I stripped their bedroom bare, repainted it in warm linen tones. I stood in the hallway afterward, arms crossed, breathing in the faint scent of drying paint. The home was mine now, not just on paper, but in presence, in choice. It no longer whispered their names when I walked through it. It greeted mine. One afternoon, I found their old wedding portrait behind the linen closet. The glass had cracked down the middle straight through my father's face. I stared at it for a while, then slid it into the trash. No ceremony, no grief, just letting go. There's power in choosing what stays and what doesn't. It took time, but I rebuilt not just the house, but the parts of me I thought were permanently borrowed, the parts that used to seek permission to belong. I no longer ask. I make space, and I hold it. The idea came to me on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, while watching a young woman at the courthouse flip through a packet of documents with trembling hands. Her name was Marissa. She had co-signed a car loan for her boyfriend, and was now being sued for payments he had defaulted on. She looked just like me at 26, tired, hopeful, and scared. That night, I called Marina. "Would you help me put something together?" I asked. She didn't hesitate, always. And that's how it began. Every Thursday evening in the local library, we hosted a free clinic for women, especially those with no background in finance or legal matters. We covered everything from asset transfer to proper title deeds, from the dangers of blind co-signing to understanding the fine print. It wasn't glamorous. We didn't go viral. But the room was always full. Women showed up with their folders, their questions, their histories. And one by one, they left standing a little straighter. I printed out real-life examples, redacted, anonymized, but clear. I even showed them my own papers. The refinance application, the warranty deed, the notary log. I wanted them to know this wasn't theory. It was survival. We used case studies, role-played conversations with pushy spouses, practiced saying, "I'll need to have my attorney review this," until it felt second nature. And at the end of every session, I stood at the front and said one sentence, always the same. If someone truly loves you, they will never ask you to give up your legal rights just to prove it. Some women cried, others clapped, but most just nodded quietly because they finally understood something no one had told them before, that boundaries are not betrayals. They are lifelines. I wasn't trying to make them cynical. I was trying to make them sovereign. Every time I walked into that room, I felt like I was honoring every version of myself that had once been afraid. The girl who asked to sleep in the car, the woman who handed over a check and hoped it meant she finally belonged. That girl is gone now. I am not her anymore. I am the name on the deed. I am the woman who knows how to keep it by heart and by law. And when people ask me why I still live in that old house, why I didn't sell it and start over somewhere else, I smile. Because it's not just a house. It's a home I took back, not by begging, but by becoming. Before we say goodbye, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Is it a quiet morning with a warm cup of coffee? Or a late night where stories like this keep you company? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone with gratitude. And if this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel. Not just to hear more stories like this, but to be part of a community that still believes in kindness, healing, and second chances. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Wherever you are, I hope you carry this story with you. And remember, sometimes the miracle doesn't knock on your door. It waits quietly until you're ready to open your heart. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.